Well, I just wanted to welcome and thank everyone for joining the webinar this evening. I'm Nikki Rattenbury from Heart of the Southwest Trading Standards, and we are hosting a series of rural support and wellbeing webinars over the winter. This is the second of our webinars that we're doing over the winter period, and it's relating to farm safety and holistic wellbeing this evening. I've just got a couple of little housekeeping slides that I just need to run through. If Sam, if you don't mind moving on to the next slide. Thank you. This webinar is being recorded so that basically anyone that has registered with us this evening to join the webinar, if they can't make it, then we send them the recording so they can sort of listen at a later date. So just wanting to make everyone aware that it is being recorded. Also, anyone that's joined us this evening, apart from the presenters, will have their chat and their videos automatically turned off. However, oh, sorry, Yvonne has just said that she can't hear anything. I'm just stopping while I can just read that in the chat. I can't hear anything. We'll leave and try and she's going to leave and try and rejoin. Luke or Sam, any idea why that might be the case?
I can hear you.
Can everybody else hear me? Is it just Yvonne?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll continue, and hopefully if she rejoins, then fingers crossed she'll be able to hear me. So yeah, so basically the chat and the cameras are switched off, but we want to try and make this, oh brilliant, she's all sorted. We want to try and make this as engaging as possible, so please feel free to turn off your mute button and speak. The presenters are really happy for you to interject as and when, if you have any questions or any comments about what's being said, or there's also the Q&A chat function that we'll be monitoring as well. So, please feel free to put anything in there and we can raise for you. If you could just move on to the next slide, please, Sam. We also just have to say that during the recording, if anyone would prefer their name not to be shared in the presentation, just please let us know in the Q&A facility, or you can contact Luke on the email given or phone number. And that's just a disclaimer that we put there, because some people obviously join these and would like to remain anonymous. So that's absolutely fine to do. So yeah, if we just move on to the next slide, I'll just give you an idea of this if you haven't already seen, but tonight's guest speakers are Olivia Davenport from Healthy Cornwall, Ellen Thomas from the Cornwall Fire Service, and Sarah Counter from Land to Sea CBT. So I won't take up any more time. I'll turn my camera off and we'll go straight over to Olivia, please. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me. So my name's Olivia Davenport and I am a health improvement practitioner for Healthy Cornwall. So I've just put my email address on for you there in case anyone would like to get in touch with me afterwards. And essentially, if you've never heard of Healthy Cornwall, what we target and our main priorities are supporting people in the community with weight management and stop smoking support. None of us are health professionals as such. So when I'm talking about weight management, we're not on that sort of tier 3 bariatric pathway down the route of weight loss surgery or anything like that. It's more so that we get referrals from the GP, or we find people in the community that are maybe having some difficulty trying to lose weight, maybe haven't got the information or the knowledge, maybe a little bit of motivation. It's that sort of level that we tend to provide in regards to support, but I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So at the moment, we have specific targeted areas, and we are given these by public health. So public health are the strategic advisors in Cornwall Council that take all the data and sort of tell us where we should go and take our delivery. Obviously, that means that we can't reach everyone. And as you can see, we are sort of trying to hit the main towns. I say that Truro is not on there for the reason being the data that is looked at looks at sort of deprivation and the highest need. So we will potentially get to Truro and Falmouth at some point if the data sort of changes. But at the moment, where we've been in the community specifically are these main priority towns. But like I said, the data's changing all the time, so it might be that those places do sort of change as and when the data does. Next slide, please. And within each area, so the whole of Cornwall is split into 3 areas. You've got West, Mid and East. I'm actually based in the Mid, sorry, and that covers anything from pretty much Falmouth all the way up to around about just below Bodmin. So my target priority areas at the moment are Newquay and St Austell, and I work specifically within the adults team. So within each of those localities, we have 3 separate advisors. So we've got pregnancy and early years advisors, children and young people advisors, and adult advisors. So I only work exclusively with adults, but I have colleagues within my mid team that work with people that have just found out they're pregnant, got young children, all the way through to sort of late teens. Next slide, please. Brilliant. So the main ways that we're trying to support in Cornwall is called an approach that's an inform, enable, support approach. So it's sort of tiered in terms of how much we are giving to people, again, based on how much people might actually need. So for example, this is our light touch tier, and this is just giving people information about how they can improve their health. So if you went onto our Healthy Cornwall website right now, you'd find lots of information about a range of healthy lifestyles. So we're looking at smoking, physical activity, weight management, diet, pregnancy, alcohol, sexual health, mental well-being, all information on there to just sort of top up people's knowledge and maybe nudge them in the right direction, but without giving any sort of direct support from myself or any of my colleagues doing that sort of community work. That comes a little bit later on. So if you go next slide, please. Another part of the Inform is that we have a social media presence. So we are on Facebook, Twitter. We do have YouTube. It's a little bit outdated. It was one we tended to use quite a lot during COVID. So if you went on there now, there is a fantastic range of videos. It's just not necessarily all up to date. You might even find some videos of me doing some fitness sessions in my living room during the lockdowns. So yeah, it feels a world away now, that does. But we do have some more recently updated stuff on there. So our Facebook page is updated very regularly about what offers we have in the community and any other information that might be of value to you. We also put things on there about national health campaigns. So for example, we've just had Stoptober. So there's lots of information about that. And we even have a Facebook group specifically for people that have given up smoking or are trying to give up smoking, to sort of just give people a little bit of a nudge through social media in regards to support there. Next slide, please. And then we move on to the enable side of things. So we've done the information, that light touch approach enables that little bit more that we're giving, and it's giving you tools that you can use to try and make those changes in terms of healthy lifestyles. So for example, there's quite a few apps available at the moment that are really, really useful. One of the biggest ones actually that isn't mentioned on this slide is the Couch to 5K. It's something that we really try and promote and get people to try and give a go. NHS Quit Smoking app, I always promote to my smokers or quitters. You've got apps on there that help with recipes, that give you an idea of what's in the food that you're eating. The Active 10 one is really fantastic for just making sure that you're getting a little bit of brisk activity in your day, because public health found out that we weren't walking that much, and that app's really fantastic for just getting a little bit more walking into your day. So this enable side is more about giving you the resources to go out and do it on your own still without that support from us. Next slide, please. And then this is going into our sort of top tier in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So for me, I'm out in the community quite a lot, trying to help those that are most in need through a range of programs. So as you can see on here, we have a number of programs available at the moment, trying to hit some of the sort of main areas. So for example, we have a digital healthy weight course, which is an online course run over 4 weeks. It's only about 30 minutes, 45 minutes each week, and that covers the real basics around weight management. So looking at calories, food labeling, exercise, all that sort of stuff. Because we have realised there is quite a low level of knowledge around some of those things. So that's just trying to top up people's knowledge and give them that little bit more support to nudge them in the right direction. We've then got our Argyle Fit, which is really, really popular. Argyle Fit is run with the Plymouth Argyle guys, and I'm trying to remember the main areas now. I cover the Brannel, but I think we've got 2 other groups in the west, maybe 1 in the east, and that's a football weight loss league for gents. We've also got a Swimming for Health programme, which is to try and get people a little bit more active with the additional support of the health improvement practitioners, to give that little bit more support and personalised approach in regards to losing weight. Again, we've got multiple locations for that at the moment. So for me in the mid, it's Newquay St Austell, but we've also got the swim groups running at the moment in Liskeard, Camborne, and Penzance, I believe. We've also had walking groups, which obviously not really running at the moment, wrong time of year, but you know, that's how our offer sort of changes throughout the year, depending on the weather and depending on need. And we also run drop-in sessions as well. So if you're looking to just come in and chat to someone about your weight, or you know, get a little bit of advice around the sort of food you're eating in the week, then we have drop-in sessions available as well. These are constantly changing. That's why I've not gone and put loads of information on here as to when they are, what time they are, days and things like that. The best thing you can do to find out what we're doing out in the community at the moment is to go onto our Healthy Cornwall website and have a look on our sort of current timetable on there. And if you even struggle to find that, or you're not sure if that's the most up to date and you want to just check in with someone in person, you can just contact our admin support team and they can let you know what we've got in the community and what might be sort of your local offer. And like I said, I understand that we're hitting sort of the major towns, and a lot of you might not be close to any of those major towns. So we can provide support, personalised support over the phone, or through Teams or Skype or anything like that as well, for a little bit more of that bespoke offer. Next slide, please. The other side of the support we offer, as I mentioned at the start, is stop smoking support. So if you've ever been offered a stop smoking support service through your GP, it's most likely what they've been trying to do is get you to come through to us. So we quite often will get referrals from the GP, referrals from the hospital, and they all come to us, and it is actually us as adult advisors, or maybe our full-time stop smoking advisors that you'd come into contact with. Smoking is pretty much the worst thing you can do for your health. It's one of the biggest causes of death in the UK, but it's never too late to quit. So I've put a little infographic image on the side there, which actually tells you some of the health benefits that you'll experience even in the first, hour, couple of days, couple of weeks from the point that you give up smoking. With our stop smoking service, one of the biggest benefits is that we can actually prescribe nicotine replacement treatment through your GP, meaning it will be at a reduced cost to yourselves. So if you do pay for prescriptions, you'd only be paying a prescription cost per item. Whereas if you were to walk into Boots at the moment and buy 2 weeks worth of patches, you're probably looking close to £20. So with that GP prescription, you're looking at under a tenner. And if you get your prescriptions for free, then obviously that would be completely free to you. nicotine replacement treatment has been found to double your chances of quitting, and using a stop smoking service has actually been found to triple your chances of being a long-term quitter. So we really do urge people to come along and chat to our advisors, refer yourself in. You do not need to go for a GP or get admitted into hospital to have a referral. You can self-refer through our website, and it's exactly the same for the weight management stuff as well. All of it can be done self-referred through the website or by calling our Healthy Cornwall line. Next slide, please. And then another part of our support is, as I sort of mentioned earlier, about doing bespoke pieces of work in the community. So maybe not necessarily things that will be long-term running, like our swim programme and the Argyle Fit, but maybe potentially things like this, when we're asked to come out and talk to different groups of people, or to do for example, I do work with workplaces, and sometimes we'll get invited along to their yearly health week, and I'll set up a little stall and talk to people around weight or smoking or things like that. So we do try and get out there and connect with as many people in the community as we can, to try and find these opportunities to, even come out and just spread the message about what we do. So even being here tonight and hopefully making a few more people aware of the Healthy Cornwall service is a bonus for us. Next slide, please. Another part of Healthy Cornwall, really popular part, is our training team. So I don't have anything to do with the training team, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because there is some fantastic work going on there. For example, some of the biggest uptake of training is mental health first aid, which you might have heard of, and assist, which is the suicide intervention skills training. But there's also, as you can see here, lots of other training available. And again, that is available to book through our website. Really easy to see what dates are coming up for you. Some of it's in person, some of it's online. And hopefully just whatever your interest is, there's something in the training offer there that can help increase your knowledge and skills potentially. Next slide, please. So that is me. I try not to bore everyone to death with lots and lots of slides. But yeah, that is essentially our offer. As I'm always keen to say, is that offer is always changing. We are part of Cornwall Council, and the funding does sort of chop and change sometimes. So that is why our offer does change quite a lot as well as the fact, as I mentioned, that our priority areas sometimes change. So it might be that, for example, we're in one area for a couple of years, the data changes, and then you find that suddenly there's no local offer to you. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit more understanding of what Healthy Cornwall is. And next time you see a white van driving around with our Healthy Cornwall big red apple logo on, you actually know what that is now. So yeah, any questions for me?
That's amazing. Thanks, Olivia. I'll just give it a couple of minutes. I've obviously got a couple of things I could ask you, but I just didn't want to pip in if there's others that may have a couple of questions. So
yeah,
I don't think anything was written in the chat. Luke, did you see anything? Or the Q&A? So
no, there was nothing in the chat. I'd like to start with a question.
There we go.
Olivia, in your opinion, is vaping a good replacement for smoking cigarettes?
This is probably the most common question I get asked at the moment. So in regards to the training that we undertake to deliver stop smoking intervention, I always get their name wrong, it's like NCSCT, and it's like the National Stop Smoking Cessation Training Program or whatever it is. Their training at the moment is saying that vaping is much safer and healthier for you than smoking based on the current research. So that's a diplomatic way of saying it. You'll probably hear and see lots of horror stories online about, so-and-so was hospitalized because of vaping. And the thing is, smoking's been around for so much longer that the stories about people getting lung cancer and other smoking related illnesses are not mainstream media news stories anymore, but vaping is trendy at the moment and they're the stories that people are seeing. So people are now becoming scared about vaping and deciding to stay on smoking. And like I said, smoking is much worse for you than vaping. So, you know, the media will twist stories. So, you know, don't believe everything you see in regards to vaping. I'm not saying that I would necessarily get my smokers to go to vaping and then encourage them to stay on vaping. Ideally, we're looking that people use vaping as a tool to come away from smoking and hopefully come off completely, and use it as an equivalent as you would do, you know, with nicotine patches, for example. You're only on those for 12 weeks, you know, roughly 12 weeks until you stop using them. And ideally, that's what vaping should be used as. But what we're obviously seeing is people moving on to it long term. And there are obviously going to be some complications with that, but not as many health risks and complications as what you would see for smoking. So I know it's a really roundabout way of saying it, but essentially we'd rather people vaped than smoked, and we'd rather people did neither of those and did nothing. But if vaping's the only option for them, we'd rather they vaped than smoked, based on the current research.
Oh, I think somebody's got their hands up. And please just ask the question, Robin. That's great.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask. I mean, obviously, this broadcast goes out to everybody in the sort of southwest region, and I think it's really interesting for us in Somerset to hear what you're doing. You're doing a much better job than we are in Somerset, so well done. But I suppose the immediate question that springs to mind is: can the GPs prescribe vapes as well as patches?
So at the moment, I believe not, but there was a news article that came out a couple of months ago that did talk about the fact that there was going to be a big push to actually provide vaping starter packs for people that were smoking. Being a smoking service, that news came out and we knew nothing about that. So that was obviously a little bit of a shock, because we were expecting to, you know, potentially be part of the, you know, people delivering that. And we've still not heard any of that. So whether that does come into fruition or not, I don't know. But I'd imagine if it does become a thing, that it would be the case that it would be GPs that could give out those starter packs, and potentially any local stop smoking services. But currently myself, nicotine replacement treatment is our main treatment option. There is also a pill form called Zyban, but we currently do not prescribe vapes, no. But we can give people the information about the safest places to go, what you need to be looking out for in regards to the products you're buying. But ourselves and GPs currently, as far as I'm aware, specifically in Cornwall, is that vapes are not being prescribed. Whether that's different in other parts of the country, I'm not sure, but I'd say no, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of would make sense, wouldn't it? And if you can have 12 weeks of patches, then 12 weeks of vapes seems like a sensible alternative, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
An a stepping stone. I mean, I know family members who've used vapes as a stepping stone, and I think that's a really sensible approach that you're taking.
Yeah, definitely. And when we get people coming through, if people are wanting to vape, I'm not trying to push them down the nicotine replacement option. I'd rather they tried the vape, because actually the research is that vaping is helping as many people give up smoking as what nicotine products are now. So, it is a really good route to take when people are trying to quit. It's just that I also try and urge people to think about it as a short-term solution to quitting, and not just staying on vapes for life. Because in terms of the financial cost, it's probably going to be as expensive as smoking for a lot of people, with the rate that they use their vapes. So, but yeah, hopefully it does make sense. And I think that was the line that was sort of coming out in the media, was that there was going to be that free vape option. But like I say, we've not heard anything about that yet.
Do you have a big problem with underage vaping?
Yeah, so our children and young people team are doing loads of work in schools at the moment, with lots of, even from the age of sort of early secondary school years, not so much in primaries, although there has been work done with some primaries that are seeing it as well, where children are picking up vapes first, whereas 40 years ago it would have been smoking at the age of 12, and now it's vaping. So yeah, that there's a lot of work going on there in terms of trying to make sure that there is no smoking or vaping going on in the schools. But yeah, it is quite a big problem at the moment. Brilliant. Any more questions? No, I will just say, obviously, I am only aware of the offer in Cornwall. As far as I'm aware, the stop smoking offer in terms of services is pretty extensive across the UK. I even had a client who was down here but was soon to be moving up country, and I managed to find a local service for him. In regards to the weight management side of things and general health promotion, that depends on the funding within that locality. So, for example, Devon used to have a very extensive health promotion offer. And when I joined this team initially about 5 or 6 years ago now, Devon at the time was being really stripped back. So I'm not quite sure what the offer is in Somerset, but it's always worth having a little Google, seeing if there is any sort of services equivalent to what Healthy Cornwall currently offer in Cornwall. Because yeah, unfortunately we can't support anyone outside of Cornwall because of our funding coming from a local council. But yeah.
Oh, thanks, Olivia. That's really
right,
great.
no,
I'm not sure that I've got any other. Has anyone else got any queries or questions? I'm conscious that you need to shoot off as well, so I don't want to keep you too long. But thank you for sharing your email address at the beginning. We'll make sure that we we'll let people know that again at the end of the webinar. Just so if if they want to contact you, you're very well, you're more than happy to receive any emails from people, so that's really kind. And thanks again for doing that, and for people asking questions. I always think it's really helpful to, I knew vapes would come up. I was waiting for that one. It's a massive topic at the moment, isn't it? And I think I'll do a bit of research as well with public health in our area and others to find out kind of what the equivalents are in our areas for Healthy Cornwall. So that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
That's all right, no worries. And yeah, worth doing it, because like I say, the funding always changes. So even when I probably knew a couple of years ago what was available in Devon and Somerset, it probably might not be the same now. But hopefully there is something there for everyone at least. But yeah, thank you very much for having me. And if anyone does have any questions, or even want to talk to me personally about what they're experiencing in regards to managing their weight or smoking, please do get in touch, and I'm happy to help.
Excellent. Thanks, Olivia.
No worries. Thank you all.
See you again soon. We've now got Ellen Thomas from the Cornwall Fire Service, who has kindly come to speak this evening as well. I'm also conscious Ellen's got work to do this evening with the storms that's been with us. So sorry about that, Ellen. Hopefully you've just got enough time to do what you need to say. Thank you.
Of course. No, brilliant. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me along to this evening's session. My name's Ellen. I work for Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service. I've worked for the service for 10 years now, which I don't know where that time's gone, but I started as an apprentice. I did a 2-year apprenticeship, and then was lucky enough to get full-time at my local fire station, and have worked for the service ever since. My day job is in safeguarding and fire prevention, which come hand in hand together. But a sort of passion of mine is the farm fire safety and farm safety stuff. I come from an agricultural background. I've done young farmers for many, many years, although don't tell anyone, but I'm actually too old now. But yeah, farming is a big passion of mine, and it's really important to me. So hence why I'm here tonight talking about the farm fire safety stuff. I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs. I'm not going to go through all the different things that can cause fires. You probably all know what they are. You've seen them on the news. You probably know of someone who's had some form of fire incident on their farm, in their home, in their workplace, whatever it happens to be. So I'm just going to talk for 20 minutes or so this evening about Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service in particular, how we respond to some of these incidents, and a few sort of basic things you can do to help us, really, hopefully to prevent the fires ever occurring, or if a fire does occur, things you can do to make our lives a little bit easier. Next slide, please. Perfect. So just a few little statistics, and I'm not a maths person, so I've kept it as basic as I possibly can. In Cornwall, the majority of fires that we attend happen in domestic properties, so people's homes. Apart from those fires, we've then ranked the incidents that we most frequently attend. The top of that list is in sort of food and drink settings, retail is second, and agriculture is third. Agriculture incidents generally take a lot of time from the fire service. So a house fire, on average, may only take a couple of hours to extinguish, whereas an agricultural fire, we could be looking at days. So it's certainly more resource intensive for us as a fire service, and can pose more risks to us as firefighters than perhaps an average domestic house would. Next slide, please. So, like I said, the agriculture incidents are the most resource intensive. Generally, we need more fire appliances, more firefighters, just to logistically be able to extinguish that fire or deal with the associated risks that may come with it. We've got a little bit of data there from 2020 to 2021, total of 900 hours, that's firefighting, fire service staff hours, were spent on agricultural farm fires. So that could be barn fires, tractor fires, gorse, anything that sort of relates back to agriculture. So after our crews have attended an incident, they have to fill in a generic national form, and on that form they put the cause of the fire, how big the fire was, where the fire happened, as well as some other information. Our very clever mathematical whizzes in headquarters can then work out where our risks are as a county, and where we should be sort of focusing our prevention activity perhaps to try and reduce some of these incidents. And another line there, on average 50 fires a year occur on farm premises, which actually doesn't sound like a lot when you're looking at the size of the county of Cornwall, and I would say, personal opinion, maybe the last couple of years we've probably had more than 50 fires a year. Next slide, please. So what can you do to help us? There's some really simple things that you can do to make our life a lot easier. So the second one on the list there, being able to provide us with a correct address and postcode of your property, really helps our control room to locate the address of that incident and send obviously the closest fire engine. But also for us actually driving there, it's really useful if we know where we're going. In Cornwall, our technology isn't always the best. In all of our fire engines, we still have paper maps, as well as our mapping system on the TomToms on the fire engine. So there are times where we get the paper maps out and work out where we're going. We also sometimes have issues where we might attend, we'll say, a tractor fire, and the address we're given is Hay Farm. We turn up at Hay Farm and look around and think, well, we can't see anything going on here. And actually the tractor that's on fire is 10 acres to the north or whatever. So the most accurate information you can give us around the location of the incident is really useful. I don't know if everyone's heard of What 3 Words. It's an app you can download on your phone, and What 3 Words has plotted every square meter of the planet has a unique 3-word reference. It's a really good thing to have on your phone. It's free to download, free to use. If you were ever to be involved in any form of incident, really, and you needed the emergency services to find you, that's a really useful tool for us to actually be able to find the location of that incident. The same with access to farms and rural locations. A lot of Cornwall is rural and a lot of Cornwall is quite narrow, and some of our fire engines aren't particularly narrow. So it's always useful if we can have a think before an incident were to ever occur. Okay, if we have a fire in this building, how are we going to get a fire engine there? And it's great to think about those things before, hoping that a fire will never occur, instead of trying to do it on a night like last night where it's piddling down with rain, it's really windy, and we're trying to fit a fire engine down a narrow lane. So that's something we can do with our farm visits, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. The most resource intensive incident for us is barn fires and wildfires, sort of gorse fires. They're the two that take a lot of firefighting time to try and deal with and address. Like I said at the beginning, you probably all know someone who's lost a barn or lost a building through fire. It's really devastating. It's thousands of pounds worth of damage, potentially all the winter feed gone in just one incident. So yeah, anything we can do to prevent those fires happening. Our sort of biggest bit of advice when it comes to barn fires is, if you are concerned that some bales in a barn are getting hot or you're a bit worried about them, call us out then. There doesn't have to be smoke, there doesn't have to be a flame. We would rather come out before and use our thermal imaging cameras to check if there's any hot spots and deal with them, rather than you thinking, not sure something's quite right here, I'll pull some bales out and see what happens. By pulling the bales out, obviously you've oxygenated the fire and whoosh, off it goes. So if you're ever in doubt, please feel free to give us a ring, and we'd much rather come out and try and prevent an incident than obviously come out when it's too late. Water supplies, again, it's an obvious one, but sometimes we perhaps don't think about it. Have you got hydrant near your farm? Might do, might not have done, might not have been used for years, the pressure might be rubbish, or is there a river nearby, or any body of water that we can use? Again, it's useful that if you ever have an incident, when we arrive, you can tell the incident commander if there is any water supply nearby. A couple of years ago, we had a barn fire fairly close to where I'm located, and we arrived, we started sort of setting the equipment up, trying to get on top of the fire, and within about couple of hours of being there, the gentleman who owned the property said, oh, I should have mentioned I've got a swimming pool, and we were like, oh, perfect. So we emptied the swimming pool. So anything like that you can advise us of, really useful. Some of our scenes can seem a bit chaotic. We end up with lots of people, lots of equipment laid out everywhere. Handily, we tend to wear tabards. So if you're not sure who's in charge or who to speak to, a simple guide is to look for the person wearing a white helmet, or a person with a tabard on that says incident commander. They're normally the best ones to speak to when there's lots going on and it's a bit chaotic and you're not sure what's happening. The animal rescues, we attend lots of animal rescues every year throughout the county of Cornwall. This could be horses that have fallen or got cast in a stable and can't get up, fallen into ditches, gone into hedges, cows in slurry pits, cows in rivers, all sorts of different things. So again, it's something that we're happy to help out with. We always work with yourselves to try and sort of make it as stress-free for that animal as possible and as safe for everybody dealing with it. We also will quite frequently utilise some equipment you might already have. So if you've got a telehandler, for example, that might be really useful for us for getting a cow out of a ditch or whatever, as opposed to us using our equipment. So it's definitely a two-way thing. We'll try and work together. Controlled burning or bonfires. We're getting to the time of year now where lots of people are going to be having lots of controlled burns. It's not a problem. You're obviously well within your right to burn things as long as it's done legally and you're not burning anything you shouldn't. But what we do really appreciate is if you're planning to have a controlled burn, you let us know first. After this evening, we can send out the phone number for our Cornwall control room. If you just give us a ring and say, oh yeah, I'm having a bonfire tonight, it's going to be from 7 till midnight, I'm going to be with it at all times and I've got a way of extinguishing it if needed. It's really useful for us. If somebody phones in and says, I can smell smoke or I can see flames at the distance, if we know you're having a controlled burn, it prevents us from sending a fire engine out unnecessarily. Excuse me. Of course, if that burn gets out of control or it's unattended, we will attend as a fire service. And if you are not looking after your bonfire, as it were, or in attendance with it, we will extinguish that fire, which I'm sure could be very annoying if you've just got it going and then we've come and put it out. So yeah, if you're having a controlled burn, please let us know and please stay with it and have a think about what you would do if it does get out of control, having some form of water or hose that you could get back control of it. The HFSC bit that I've got on there, I've kind of skipped over that one, haven't talked about it. That stands for Home Fire Safety Checks. That's a service that we provide across the county of Cornwall, and our neighbours in Devon and Somerset also provide this service. It's basically where we would come out and do an assessment, but it's a lot more relaxed than that. Have a little look around your house. If you need some additional smoke alarms fitted, we can do that for you, and we can provide bespoke fire safety information for you and your property. In Cornwall, I can't speak for Devon and Somerset, but in Cornwall, we provide a similar service for farm fire safety. So if you'd like one of our team to come out and just have a little walk around, pick out anything that we see that we think might be a bit of a risk and perhaps you could make safer, we're happy to do that. It's all free of charge. And again, it's back to the prevention's better than cure. We'd much rather come out and have a little look around, fresh set of eyes, fit some smoke alarms in the house, give you a little bit of advice than be coming out when it's too late and a barn's gone or a property's gone. So like I say, it's a free service. If you'd like one of those visits, you can access them on our website. We've got a free phone number, or again, we can share my email address at the end of this session. More than happy to provide that for anybody who wants them. Devon and Somerset, I don't know if they do the same farm visits, but they definitely do the domestic home fire safety visits. Next slide, please. I'm just going to mute myself for 2 seconds while I cough. There we go, much better. Just a few pictures on this slide, really, of recent incidents we've attended. Like I said, and I've said multiple times, you don't need me to tell you how devastating a barn fire can be and how quickly they can escalate. This is just a few pictures of incidents we've had. The top right-hand corner was a barn just up the road from where I live. Devastating for them, really, really upsetting. Lost an awful lot of haylage and straw. Really sad. So yeah, just thinking about anything you can do to prevent these fires happening in the first place are really, really key. Next slide, please. Perfect. I keep banging on. I sound like a bit of a broken record, but I'll say it again. The agricultural fires, the barn fires, they are the most resource intensive for us. So we've got a few little case studies there of incidents. Fire involving pallets, which spread to a barn, 4 pumps, so that's 4 fire engines basically, a water carrier. We've got several water carriers dotted across Cornwall. In fact, we've got 3. They are basically a fire engine that looks a bit like a milk tanker, but it's full of water. We can send those to incidents where access to water, access to hydrants is difficult. The downside of our water carriers is they are quite wide, so although we can get them pretty much anywhere, it can take a bit longer to get them down some of our country lanes. And 2 officers would be required for that incident. That's basically a whole-time officer who would attend in a car, and if needed, they would take control of the scene from the incident commander who would have turned up in the fire engine. And there's the time frame, 4:10 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. for that incident. So several hours there, but not a long time. The next case study we've got is barn fire, which is the one that I told you about earlier, just up the road from me. 7 fire engines for that. So on average, we'd have 5 firefighters per fire engine with 7 trucks. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a time delay, especially in Cornwall, of the trucks getting to that incident. And if we've got 7 trucks in one place, that does leave less resources across the rest of that part of the county, although our control room are very good about making cover moves and moving people around. But it could potentially mean that we are sort of delayed attending other incidents because we're tied up with this one. 3 water carriers sent to this incident. Again, it was just due to the scale of the fire, and the nearest hydrant was a very long way away, so we were relaying, that's a new word, relaying water to extinguish that fire. 1 HVP, which is high volume pump as well. We've got one of those at Newquay Fire Station, which obviously covers most of the county. And 3 whole-time officers for that job. The reason there's 3 officers is obviously an officer can only work for so many hours, and we then change over. Your average barn fire, the duration is sort of 1 to 4 days, and we try and stay there for those sort of 4 days to make sure the fire is completely out. Otherwise, if there's any form of hotspots, it will reignite. There's nothing more embarrassing for us than packing up and going home and sort of tea and medals, and then the fire starts again. So really important that we properly extinguish all those hotspots, pull everything out. With the barn fires, often we get to a point where we contain them, but we do just let them burn because there'd be so much water required to extinguish it. Sometimes it's not possible, but every incident's different, and that would be assessed on the day or on the night. And then, of course, after an incident, it takes quite a lot of time to make up all the kit. So take it all down, put it in the fire engine, take it home. We've then got to clean it, replace any damaged equipment. And of course, there's then accident investigation into how that fire started. Was it suspicious? Did the police need to be involved? Was there any CCTV? All of that takes quite a lot of time for our officers to piece that together. Next slide, please. I think we're almost there. That's it. Perfect. I feel like I've talked very quickly there, and it was a very whistle-stop tour. But I suppose the takeaway message from me is, if you would like a visit, whether that's to the home or the farm, please feel free to get in touch with us. If you've got any questions about anything you're a bit worried about, please do let us know. And yes, if you're planning to have any controlled burns, also let us know about that, because it certainly reduces a fire engine being sent out unnecessarily, just to have a chat with you and look at your bonfire and then drive back again. So if you can notify us of any controlled burns, we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Ellen. That's really, that was brilliant. And I've learned a few things I never knew, or I wouldn't have thought about the moving the hay bales actually and igniting the fire. That's something that I won't forget now. And, you know, when we're out on farm, I'll definitely be mentioning that more than once to some of our farmers that we meet. And also myself and my other colleagues have also, obviously we predominantly work in Devon and Somerset, but I know that we all now promote sort of the fire through the fire service at your home visits for the different work that we do, as well as on farm as well. So
Brilliant.
that's the same for Devon and Somerset as well. So so that's great. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I'm conscious that you do need to get away to work, but has anyone got any questions they would like to ask Ellen why we've got her? I think you might be lucky, Ellen.
Got off very lightly there.
You did.
Well, I'm more than happy for you to share my email address with anybody who's listening in or attending. Yeah, you can give us a call. You can contact us by email, whatever. We're happy to help with whatever questions you've got.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks ever so much for your time. And I hope this evening's not too crazy for you.
Thank you very much.
Up from everything. And yeah, we'll be in touch soon. That's really kind.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, Ellen, thank you. And then we're just going to move on now to Sarah Counter from Land Sea CBT.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks very much. And thanks for inviting me along this evening. So I'm here really just to kind of, I suppose, just wrap up with everybody's great information they've brought along this evening in regards to thinking about how we can look after our mental health and well-being in the farming community. So I'm Sarah Counter, and I am a cognitive behavioural therapist. I have been working in mental health services across a whole range of different NHS services for over 20 years. And since 2020, I've been providing the Farm Fit project. So next slide, please, Sam. So we provide the Farm Fit service, which is to offer free mental health and wellbeing support for farmers and their families and carers in Cornwall. So this service is for people who are aged 18 plus. And obviously we're trying to reach out and support the community as best we can in terms of thinking about how we can help support managing people who might be experiencing stress, anxiety, low mood, or feeling isolated, because we know that farming is a particularly isolated job in that sense. And yeah, we want people to know that they don't have to deal with it alone. So as part of their aims and objectives, really, what we are hoping to deliver is we want to increase the knowledge base about mental health and well-being for the farming community. We want to reduce stigma and provide early intervention. because we really want to start kind of getting people to think about normalizing and understanding our emotions and our emotional health in that sense, and also to help promote and increase knowledge base about how people can access support should they need it. So next slide, please, Sam. So in terms of thinking about why we need it, so we know that with, there's lots of pressures on farmers and families, and we can predict that some of those people will be negatively impacted. And we also know that chronic stress can lead to the development of more severe mental health issues. And actually, by opening up and having the conversation and having more self-awareness ourselves, we can also then go on and support both ourselves and others in the community. In terms of some statistics, it was felt that with some recent research that's been done over the last few years, it was felt that 80% of farmers under the age of 40 thought that mental health was the largest hidden problem facing the farming community at the moment. And that, I guess, getting us to think about how mental health and physical health are on a continuum. So that kind of also fits in with what Olivia was saying earlier from Healthy Cornwall. So really how we kind of look after our physical health and also our mental health in relation to that. And thinking about it, so like, when we're in good physical health and feeling physically fit, some days we might have aches and pains and niggles that make us more physically unwell, and we might have to use strategies to manage that. And that's the same with our mental health and well-being, that we need to look after that equally. So some days we might struggle with our mental health and well-being, and it might be just due to various factors that might be affecting us depending on what's happening for us on those days. And thinking about maybe just spending sometimes it's helpful to spend a bit of time thinking what that looks like, and then thinking about what those strategies can be. So actually, about having good mental health isn't mean that we never have bad times or experiences, and obviously we all experience disappointments and loss and changes in life, but it's about how we can kind of bounce back and manage those changes and how we can overcome that. So really, I guess what we really want to do is encourage the farming community to prioritise their own mental health and well-being, and this might help prepare them to face any challenges moving forward in relation to that, and I guess feel more mentally prepared, because we know that there's a lot of change that's certainly happening for farmers and the farming community at the moment. So next slide, please, Sam. So just a few further statistics. This was carried out by the Big Farming Survey, which was conducted by RABI, the Royal Agricultural Benevolent can't say that word, Institute, and some academics at Exeter University, and they identified that at least a third of the population surveyed was likely, this is the farming population, was likely to be experiencing depression, and that actually almost half were experiencing anxiety, and actually a lot of the stress and anxiety that farmers were experiencing were linked due to occupational worries about the future and finances. And they also identified that young farmers are more likely to experience feelings of loneliness and less likely to confide in others. So hence thinking about how we target that isolation in that occupational group. We also know that statistically in England, 1 in 4 people will experience a common mental health problem of some kind each year, and actually 1 in 6 report experiencing a common mental health problem like anxiety and or depression each week. And also, a statistic that we really want to try to target and try to work on and try to bring down really is that sadly more than 1 farmer a week dies by suicide. So that's why it's a really important conversation to try to have and open up this really to help challenge some of that stigma, as we were saying. So next slide please, Sam. So when we think about mental health, I guess, and well-being, it's about, what that describes. And mental well-being describes our ability to cope with the ups and downs of everyday life. And actually, the World Health Organization conceptualizes mental health as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. And so, and like we said, it's like we all experience mental health and well-being, and it's an integral component of health and well-being that underpins individual and collective abilities to make decisions and build on relationships and shape the world that we live in. And it's a fundamental basic human right. And we all, like we said, we all experience mental health and well-being, but poor mental health can make it more difficult to cope with everyday life, and that can then impact on our activities of daily living, like our occupation, work, and education. So next slide, please. So as I kind of briefly summarised previously, if we think about our mental well-being being on a continuum, and actually it changes all the time. It changes daily, it changes over the hour, depending on what's happened. So in terms of, sometimes we might be feeling really kind of positive and healthy, and that might be the same as like our physical health. And then actually sometimes we, the stress bucket might be getting a little bit more full. Things get laid on, and all of a sudden we've just got little bits that are dropping into our stress bucket in that sense. And then sometimes, as a result of that, if the stress bucket gets too high and we don't have ways or strategies in place to help with kind of getting some of that overspill off, then we might find that that can tip us into kind of more severe mental health problems and illness in that sense. So if we think about it on that continuum and think about the strategies we can do to try to stay in range for us and about what works for us, then overall we can hopefully contribute to having a positive well-being in that sense. So next slide, please, Sam. So as I said, there are some challenges for us in terms of thinking about how we have this conversation around mental health and well-being in the agricultural community. We know that there is still a lot of stigma surrounding mental health and well-being, and although the conversations have really opened up, and it's definitely something that's much more open in relation to that, but it's still really kind of, for some people, that's still a challenge. There's often still negative perception around mental health and what mental health is and how we perceive that in terms of ourselves or others. Sometimes we might find that we're just ignoring our emotional well-being, or we don't have that emotional well-being language or understand what really that means for us or for other people. We might have feelings of embarrassment or confusion or feeling scared to talk. Some young farmers that I've been talking to, they've referred to sometimes feelings of peer pressure within groups. So that's another factor that needs to be kind of considered into some of those challenges. There might be fear of gossip. The farming communities and rural communities are often closed, quite small communities. Everybody knows each other, or lots of people know each other, lots of people are working together all the time. So, sometimes people don't want to feel like they're sharing that information. I guess there's other things to think about maybe as well in terms of those developmental transitions. So thinking about this maybe with some of the young farmers that might be thinking about, they might be in education and they might be transitioning from home. They might also be working, and also for people who are working within generational farms, and are also thinking about those issues around farm succession. So these are all challenges in themselves as well. And actually, one of the other factors that has been fed back is that generally sometimes it's just about knowing how or where to access support. And actually that can be a challenge in itself, because we know that there's a whole raft of information out there, but sometimes how do you access that in a timely manner? And also it's about making time to access support. We know that, farming is a 24/7 job, and so it's not easy just to say that you can carve time out to make an appointment that might be available for you between 9 and 5. So we know that that's a challenge as well, but it's also important to recognise that it is important that we look after ourselves as well. And it's that saying, isn't it, that you can't pour from an empty cup in that sense, because we have to look after ourselves as well. Next slide, please, Sam. So as part of that, just wanted so more than anything, wanted to think about what some of those support options are and can be. So for some people, it might be thinking about, and if people are feeling that they can reach out or encouraging others to reach out, it might be that they have got some trusted friends or family that they can speak to, and thinking about who those people might be. Thinking about people within their communities or peer groups. Also, there's the whole array of online support, lots of apps out there, and there's some particular, I know some farmers have fed back to me as well in terms of some particularly like kind of farming related apps in relation to that. I think Ollie Blogs, I think he's quite popular in terms of the farming community as well, and I've had farmers talk to me about that one. And also thinking about kind of guided self-help and using some kind of self-help resources in the first instance, if that's appropriate. One of the things as well that we try to do, if it's relevant, is thinking about that problem solving. So it's like also linking to relevant agencies that might help with any kind of financial or housing, bereavement or business support. So having that, we're trying to increase our knowledge to make sure that we can help link people up with the relevant agencies. Also, there's the other agencies as well, like we talked about, like Healthy Cornwall, but also each GP has a social prescriber within their practice, and people can access their social prescriber. And a bit like the illustration, really, the social prescriber, if somebody's got some interests or they've got some ideas of things that they might like to get involved with, the social prescriber could help navigate that and help navigate where they could link into thinking about how they could get perhaps funded for that. So it's always worth having a chat with your social prescriber in your GP. And obviously as well, there is some relevant kind of agencies that are kind of farming and rural community support based in regards to providing that kind of pastoral support. So there's the FCN, RABI, there's also obviously, Farm for the Future, and so there's some of the other business support that's available to people as well. Also Papyrus, that's a service that's for suicide prevention for people aged under 35. And obviously with ourselves as well, we're part of that offer as well through the Farm Fit service. So next slide, please, Sam. So yes, just to summarise a bit more about what we offer. So in terms of that, like I said, we're an 18+ service. We offer one-to-one support for farmers or their families or carers in Cornwall. And we do cover the Isles of Scilly as part of that as well. We can provide that support across a range of modalities. So we can do that on a Teams call. So we could use web-based calls. We can use phone, and also as part of that, we wanted to offer something that was a bit more bespoke, because we know that actually accessing mainstream services can be a bit of a challenge within 9 to 5. So also one of the things that sometimes I'm able to offer is a walk and talk approach, and we can kind of look at whether that's something that would be helpful to be able to kind of offer that outreach approach. We also go to the local Truro livestock market. So we go there once a month to increase visibility of the service and just kind of use it as a bit of a pop-up, really. So that, and so, you know, and that's been actually really successful over the last year. And we get, you know, sometimes farmers will just come up for a chat, or they'll just come up and see, you know, what we're doing. And also, you know, like we said, being able to kind of collaborate and network and signpost people to other services if that's relevant or appropriate for them. We collaborate a lot with different agencies. So thinking, you know, we work closely with trading standards, 5 different farm advisory groups and agencies, and also, yes, other support agencies such as the FCN and RABI. And, you know, our emphasis has been able to wrap support around individuals when they need it, and just offer a bit of a independent ear, really, and just being able to have a safe space to have a chat. Part of what we've done recently, and you know, we're looking at how we perhaps can think about how we can roll that out in the future, but we offered a pilot where we were able to access some physiotherapy sessions for working farmers who had a working related injury, and we were able to get them provided with some physiotherapy support, and that seemed to get taken up and went well. So we're looking at how we might be able to expand that offer in the future. And also, one of the projects that we're trying to look at as well is working more with some of the young farmer groups to, again, provide mental health and wellbeing support and workshops, and just to, again, raise awareness and challenge stigma as part of that offer. So a lot of our emphasis is on prevention, and also providing intervention at the right stage regarding, depending on what the issue is. So I think that's everything I had to say tonight. I don't think my email's there if anybody wants to get in contact, or that can be forwarded out. Is there any questions?
Oh, thanks, Sarah. That's brilliant. I appreciate you coming this evening and giving us your time. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but I just wanted to raise, I went to the Farming Community Network conference last week, and they were saying there were some people speaking from the young farmers, and they were saying that the actual bracket of concern now is obviously you've got the young farmer network that kind of support each other up until, you know, they leave young farmers in their late 20s, and you've also got some older community support, church groups, WI, coffee mornings, you know, and the older generation tend to attend the livestock markets, but when you said about the sort of the under 40s, the 80% of under 40s, actually they were saying, sort of the Farming Community Network, that their concern was exactly that a lot of the sort of 30 to 40 bracket is where they're still working really, really hard. They're on the farm sort of maybe 95% of the time, quite lonely and isolated, and actually also the stigma around kind of they've got a, you know, soldier on, they're not, you know, and don't actually want to admit that they're really struggling. So we were sort of they talked a bit about kind of trying to find some support networks for those people, and actually that sort of age bracket, and that's kind of the hardest sort of ones to reach out to, really, which I sort of hadn't thought about massively. And then when they said it, it was kind of a really it was kind of quite obvious. But yeah, so I think you were sort of mentioning that, and I think now that we're realizing that, hopefully that's a start that people can sort of start to, you know, reach out to that age bracket and try and support them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, and that's why we're trying to be, you know, think about a bit more creatively about some of the, you know, hopefully moving forward, some of the options that we might be able to do to offer more, you know, workshops and pop-ups and things like that, to be able to kind of support perhaps some of those pockets of groups a bit more effectively. And one of the things, I mean, we're really open to, and, you know, would really welcome, really, is any feedback like that about kind of any pockets or any groups or any ideas of how we can help facilitate that in that sense. So we're always asking the community really about what would be helpful for them and how we can for us to think about how we can support them.
That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely think that we'll, I can definitely continue to do that with like our local communities and stuff to try and promote that as much as we can when we're out on farm as well. Robin's got his hand up. I didn't know if you had another question there, Robin.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, first of all, for us here in Somerset, we are forever indebted to Devon County Council for kind of organising all of these things and for really being the kind of champion with the FFR stuff. Sadly, because we were in unitary transition, all over, COVID and everything when the genesis of this project first started and you first started running these sort of webinars. It's been incredibly useful, and I kind of spread the message to everybody that I know in Somerset to kind of, join them when they were previously run more broadly, that you didn't have to have a SBI number, and now obviously more specifically for the farming community. So a huge well done for putting them on. I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing. And in fact, I was in an SFI briefing yesterday for a group of farmers that BIP organised, and I made a point of mentioning this session to them, and I don't think anybody knew about it who was in there, despite the fact they all get the BIP email like I do. So yeah, it's really just get the message out to everybody that these webinars are fantastic. I think the only thing I would say for our sort of Somerset point of view is, I don't know whether it reaches down as far as you, do you have yellow wellies at ag markets near you?
I've not seen I know they've come to some of the county shows, and I obviously they do a lot of the
they do the Farm Safety Foundation.
But I suppose national campaigns, that's the word I was looking for. It went out my head. National. So rather than the local on a local offer. But one of the things, because thinking about talking about the groups, because there's a Cornish Ladies in Wellies, which is a it's quite self-explanatory really, but there's there's a lot of farming ladies and they're partners in relation to that, who are those groups are set up to target in relation to that. But I think you're right. I think there is still that, and it has been discussed about that group over that over 30s group really within the male communities, that we perhaps need to think about how we support them a bit more.
Yeah, and very sadly, I think most of the suicides are men, aren't they? So and my partner's a retired consultant psychiatrist, and she very sadly has been out to see, had to go out and see some of these incidents when they've happened, and each one is incredibly sad in its own right, but also deeply shocking in the way they're done, because they tend to be incredibly traumatic and brutal kind of things. And so the more we can avoid it, the better, really. I think so I mentioned yellow wellies because I know they go to junction 23. I know they go that far down to sort of Bridgewater, but I wasn't sure whether they went any further down in actually going to the livestock markets.
No, I think you've got Farmerados. They're a kind of just an informal support, aren't they? They pop up at some of the markets in Somerset, but
in one of the webinars, Robin, after Christmas, we've got, sadly, Stephanie wasn't able to, from the Farm Safety Foundation, wasn't able to join us in the first webinar, but because they're just super busy. But she's going to, one of their, either Stephanie or one of her colleagues will come and speak in, I think it's either the January or February webinar that we have booked in. So I'll make sure that I address that with her and find out sort of the area that the Yellow Wellies campaign covers, and if they do go down as far as sort of Cornwall markets.
Yeah, and as I say, I cannot stress enough how much of a brilliant job Devon County are doing in putting this sort of thing on. And I wouldn't be, I think you reach a lot of people with the recordings, so you might not necessarily get a huge number of people who turn up on the night, but I know loads of people who watch the recordings, or who did, when it was the previous iteration. So yeah, I wouldn't underestimate your influence and your reach. I think you reach a lot of people. I think it's a really brilliant thing.
Oh, that's really kind of you, Robin. And it was interesting when you said that you'd gone to the SFI meeting, sorry, ran the wrong way, and the fact that actually BIP hadn't or it hadn't reached out. So I just wondered if anyone gave you any suggestions of how else we might be able to reach out to get people made aware of it.
Gosh, it's a really good question. I think it's such a shame. From my point of view, I mean, we're in the SFI pilot, so we're kind of right at the vanguard of what's the changes, and we were involved even pre-SFI pilot in the sort of tests and trials. So we've kind of been involved, even before Brexit was done. And so we're reasonably well placed, but trust me, it's confusing even for us.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the number of people that I meet. I go to a lot of these SFI briefings, with all sorts of people, FAS and DEFRA themselves, BIP, all sorts of people organise them, and absolutely without fail, there seems to be a very low kind of awareness of the FFR offer, for the whole thing, the business support, the 12 hours of tech, these webinars, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And, to my mind, it's probably, it's almost the best money the government has ever spent out of the BPS budget. If you think about the impact that what is actually a relatively small amount of money compared to the amount of money that's being paid out in BPS, if you think about the impact it's having, offering free digital tools, offering free business support to people, supporting this webinar, it's having a huge impact, but we're just not getting the message out to enough people. The people who have it and the people who have the support think it's amazing, but it's just getting people to know about it or sign up for it, or I don't know what the barriers are. I really don't, because I know Cosmic, who run the sort of 12 hours IT support for us in Somerset, they're really struggling to get the message out to farmers and to sort of land managers about, there is this free offer, and you can have this kind of bespoke, tailored kind of support. And it's kind of slightly ironic that the juxtaposition is that there is all this support about managing the transition, and yet almost without fail, the vast majority of the people who attend the SFI briefings have not looked at it and have not signed up for it. And so they've got this far with their BPS reduction without even looking at what is going, what will replace it and will be the alternative. And I find that absolutely shocking. I just wonder how much BPS has got to reduce to make people step forward and look at the alternatives. I really do.
I think what's happening, in my opinion, Robin, is like you say, I think we just really need to work out how we get in touch with those people and how we target them, because I think what's probably happening is they know that reduction is coming, and that's probably heightening their stress levels and their anxiety levels. And then what's happening is they can't see the wood from the trees, if there's another better way of saying it. And then they just, instead of actually, like you say, doing something about it, you kind of bury it all down and pretend it's not happening, and hoping that it's just going to go away. And we're sort of like, when we're going to farms and livestock markets at the moment, we're really trying to push it out there and kind of put it right with them, and also kind of trying to do the first steps with them as well, to like maybe making that first phone call while I've been on farm, or pushing the leaflets to them, but obviously just giving a bit more of a self-explanatory, and kind of trying to engage with them and get to the agricultural advisor sort of in a sideways manner as well, just to try and help them just do that. Because I think once they make that initial call and they've got like a person that they're going to speak to, Joe Bloggs down at one of the agricultural advisors, they'll feel more confident. But I think it's just that initial step, and it's all the paperwork that I imagine they're thinking as well that is going to come alongside it. So I agree with you. I think there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but like you say, if we can try and promote all of these as best we can, and I'm super grateful for your comments, and any support that you're giving us to promote these is really helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're pushing out. We had a face-to-face SFI pilot get together at the Barcelona Showground a couple of months ago, and we made a point of kind of raising it. We had quite a good turnout, and I made a point of kind of raising it there, because even you might find this astonishing, but even the people who are in the pilot are kind of, they haven't really decided what they're going to do after the pilot, and some of them are thinking about not carrying on with SFI and kind of doing something else, or whatever. So and I think it's interesting you mentioned farm advisors. When we had the face-to-face get together with the DEFRA team, I said to them, my anecdote, what I'm hearing anecdotally locally here in Somerset, is that the farm advisors are advising farmers to hold fire still.
Okay.
And wait and see, because it's still shifting sand, and to not commit to anything, because you'll be, even though it's only a 3-year agreement rather than a 5-year CS agreement, which is what it would be, they're advising farmers to still hold fire, because they perceive it as kind of a changing, movable feast that hasn't finally settled yet. And and I said to DEFRA, I said, you've got a huge job. You need to get out and talk to the farm advisors, because I think they're not kind of bringing their clients forward into the schemes. And it is, it is confusing, for us in the pilot, to having had SFI 22 and now 23, and all these late announcements and all this kind of thing, and then people are thinking about, oh, well, shall I sell my carbon for natural capital and all this kind of thing. So I mean, I cannot tell you. I mean, as I say, I've been to loads of these SFI briefings, and I would say every time I go to one, I would say 80+% of people have not done anything about SFI.
Wow, that's interesting, and it's good that we've got Luke on the call this evening, who obviously works and involved with the Future Farm Resilience Project more heavily than we are, and so I think he'll be feeding back without a doubt those comments, because I think it's that's the bread and butter, isn't it, the problem. So I know that myself and other colleagues have also, because of the DEFRA funding and things that come through to do the FFR, they put so many restrictions as to what they want from us in order to justify the funding that they're giving us, and such as like the query you said earlier about the SBI numbers, having to have even just having that added in. It's like we keep saying to them, no farmer knows what their SBI number is. Like, if you ask them for their holding number, their postcode, something like that, their surname, you're fine. But you're asking for an SBI number, and they just don't know. They don't know what, they don't have them to hand. They don't remember. But a holding number, I would say probably more like 80% of people are going to, remember that. There's not many farms I go to where one family member knows what that is. So I think we keep feeding back to them about that. So but what we've done for the webinars now is that we have it was at the beginning of these, you had to put the box needed something in it as you registered, so you had to sort of put your SBI number. But actually what we've done now is you basically can leave that. It's not a compulsory box that needs filling, so we're hoping that will generate a few more people registering as well, because I've had a few questions emailed to me about it. How do I do it without putting an SBI number, and what's that? So now we're kind of, because these webinars are made, obviously we want Future Farm Resilience members to join, and we want to get that for the numbers for DEFRA, but we also want it to be much bigger than that, and we want everyone to, all to feel inclusive in these, because like you said, it supports so many people in so many different ways. So so that's something that, so the more we do of these and the more we get feedback, the more that we can make them more user friendly and reach out to more people.
Yeah, I think that's that would have been, if you hadn't already done it, that would have been my number one suggestion, would be to take off the SBI or take the mandatory bit off, because that's such a barrier. And it was funny actually, that some people I know who used to watch the previous incarnation of the webinars, they suddenly, as soon as I told them they needed the SBI number, that was an instant barrier for them.
Yeah. But so that, I mean, really those feedback is, the question, the things that you're saying is kind of things that have been bumbling along, that we're raising all the time, and the barriers that we're hitting with the DEFRA funding. So not that it's great to have another person say it, but it's also a little bit, refreshing in a way that it's not just us that think it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I think if you only have to look at the numbers. I mean, DEFRA announced last week or whenever it was, so if you think in the pilot there was about 1,000 farmers, they've lost a few over the 2 years, but there's about 850 of us or something, and since SFI 23 has launched, they've only managed to recruit about 1,000 so far. Wow. So, and there's 100,000 farm registered SBI BPS claimants in the country. So 1,000 is a very, very, very small percentage of the people that could potentially sign up. So just kind of shows the scale of the problem, getting the message out. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, as you say, we'll all keep trying to push the message out, and
that's all we can do, I think, and keep feeding back as well, which is the other bit, which I think is so important, is just not sort of pretending it's not happening. Actually, keep trying to get back and make those comments to the people that might be able to do something about it. So thank you. I really appreciate your interaction tonight, and the comments you've made, and thank you, Sarah. I think that presentation was amazing, and Farm Fit sounds amazing, and I will definitely be promoting that wherever possible. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, thanks. And thanks. Yeah, thanks for having giving me the opportunity to promote it really within this webinar. That's been great.
Lovely. Well, if anyone hasn't, I don't think anyone has any further questions for you, Sarah. You might be free to go. And Luke, I think you were going to just give us just a bit of a update on the Future Farm Resilience, and it might be an opportunity for you to feed back any comments that Robin's been saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to take any of those questions again, Robin. I'll try and address them now, just sharing a bit about the programme. So for those of you that are here, as well as those of you that might be watching the recording, this webinar series and the Rural Support Project is being funded through the Future Farming Resilience Programme. Originally, the rural support work that Nikki and Sam have been doing was Devon and Somerset, but through this programme, we've scaled it up to include Dorset and Cornwall, which is part of how we get to deliver a Cornwall webinar tonight. And so we're quite big on working with local advisors and local organisations. While I know there's a big Devon County Council badge down there, don't let this put you off from registering for the free farm business support that's available through the programme. This is accessible to all single payment, or all farmers and land managers that are in receipt of single payments, as long as you've got over, I think it's 5 hectares, and you have SBR number, you are eligible. SBR numbers, I know it's difficult to track down where they are, to know what they are. It's equivalent to being asked, what's your credit card number? No one knows it off by hand. But that's what the Rural Payments Agency used to identify your farm business. So while your holding number is a bit like your passport or your driver's license, most people recognise it. The SBI number is just what the Rural Payments Agency use as a form of identification in the same way as your credit card or debit card. So but it can usually be found on all RPA communications. On the if you get a letter from the RPA, either at the top of the letter in the header or in the bottom of the letter in the footer, the RPA will have your SBI number. You can alternatively call to request it. If you've got you'll have the details of your farm business. You might have to sit on hold for a bit while you put through to the relevant department. But yeah, there's a couple of ways of obtaining that SBR number to ensure you can get the free farm business support available. So Robin's done a great job already of describing some of the support that's available. There's 5 bullet points here on the slide, and this is more or less the offering that's available. It's very broad and diverse, and it's ultimately tailored to fit you and how you want to receive the support. So the transition workshops, those are really just for exploring what is going on, and that's a great place to start on your journey to exploring the reductions in single payments and how that's going to affect your farm business. You can go directly, I must say, to any of these. You don't have to start a transition workshop and work your way through. You can come into the programme at any time if you want the one-to-one support that's described there. Robin's briefly mentioned, where a farm business advisor can come to farm. Small group webinars such as the SFI webinars or the SFI on-farm workshops, which we host, which Robin also described. You can join those straight away if you're interested. The digital training, that's run by Cosmic, a digital social enterprise. They're based here in Devon, but they operate all across the southwest. Again, that training is up to 12 hours of free one-to-one support and workshops and all sorts, from learning how to use Excel to setting up a website for your farm business and setting up a shop, if that's something of interest to you. And then the Wellbeing workshops. This is where tonight's webinar fits in. So the Wellbeing support is being primarily, while all our farm business advisors are mental health first aid trained and have received training to effectively deal with mental health and wellbeing inquiries that might come about during on-farm visits. These wellbeing workshops are really for you to explore your own wellbeing as well as that of your farm business, and that's where the Rural Support Project that Nikki and Sam, our training standards officers, come in. They've been running this for long before the Future Farming Resilience Programme existed, and but yeah, through the programme, this is an opportunity where we get to use public money for public goods, and that's the support more or less in a nutshell. I'm happy to address any queries. There's a phone number on the slide here, 0800 592 872, which you can call if you want to get in touch. I'll leave my email address on the when we send out the slides as well for some of you. But otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions on the Future Farming Resilience Programme now, if anyone has them.
That's great, Luke. Thank you very much. I think we had a good discussion about it earlier, didn't we? So, no, that's really, really good. We'll keep this at every webinar that we do, because I think it's sort of the bread and butter of what we're doing and you're doing. So I think we'll make sure we do this each time. If we move on to the next slide, it's just some the information for the rest of the series of webinars up until April. These are all live now, so please feel free to book on them all now. There might be a slight tweak to the the speakers and the topical changes, depending on, as the months go on, if something becomes very relevant that we need to discuss, or people feeding back to us about topics that they want to us to talk about at these webinars. So yeah, if anybody that's joined us this evening or that listens to this recording further on from this evening has anything that they want to feed back to us, please do, because we really want to make sure that these webinars are really worthwhile, so and hit the topics that people are concerned about. So yeah, so they're live links now through the business information point link there, and it will continue to be the first Thursday of every month. And then just the final slide, I think, is just to say thank you very much to everyone attending and to all of our speakers. You know, it's all about you guys, really. The speakers are the people that we want to, you know, give the opportunity to get their support services and things out and about to everybody. Me and Sam and the rest of my team are just here to try and facilitate it, really. So yeah, there's an email address and a phone number. Anyone at the business information team can forward you through to myself or Sam, to Luke, and to any of the speakers. So just please feel free to use that as a point of contact as well. And I think that's it. So there was one last thing that I just wanted to mention, which I should have said earlier with Sarah's presentation, was the Hub of Hope. And myself and my colleague now use that quite regularly. You can Google, if you Google Hub of Hope, it brings you up a sort of searching facility, and that will give you the opportunity to sort of put in something that you're concerned about in terms of mental health and physical well-being, and it will give you local, put in the area that you're in, and it will give you the local support services that are closest to you, and that has proven to be quite a helpful tool for us when you're in the different areas, because different counties and different parts of the county have different services available, which we're finding sort of with Cornwall having Health Cornwall or Farm Fit. Another county might have something similar or different, but it might be called something that we wouldn't be aware of. So the Hub of Hope is something that we're also trying to get that information out there to people as well. So I think that's it. Luke, Sam, I think if you've got nothing else to say, I think we are done.
Nothing from me.
Nothing from me, just a thank you to everyone who's attended tonight.
Amazing, lovely. Well, in that case, we should be able to finish. So thank you all very much.